Hey guys, my name is Vaibhav and welcome to the very first episode of Figuring Out with Vaibhav. There is no week that passes by जब कश्मीर न्यूज़ में ना हो and have you ever wondered why the state of JNK is so unstable or so volatile? Because I have. And maybe today's video might help you understand this better. The purpose of today's video is to help you understand and give you a broad backdrop of how the state of Jammu and Kashmir became a part of India, or rather how the state of JNK was integrated into India. And it's not a happy story. To completely understand this, we have to first go back around 75 years and understand the background at the time of India's independence, in particular about the princely states. Now, even after finally attaining freedom from the Britishers in 1947, India still faced this daunting task of partition and of solidifying and uniting the princely states into one country. At the time of India's independence, there were around 565 princely states which were officially recognized, and the 1947 Indian Independence Act terminated the suzerainty of these princely states, which allowed them to join either of the two new dominions that were India or Pakistan, or to remain independent and autonomous. Now, what were the princely states, you might ask? So, in the most basic sense, the princely states were areas that were not directly governed by the Britishers, but in fact had an Indian ruler in the form of a king or a prince or a queen, and they were sovereign, but in name only, and they were still under the British crown. So if you look at it realistically, it was just a facade by the Britishers wherein these Indian rulers were allowed to have their false sense of independence, their false sense of autonomy, as long as they recognized that the British crown was paramount and they continued to pay their taxes, they continued to pay towards the maintenance of British troops in India. The Britishers were fine with it, and it was more like a win-win for the Britishers as well as these Indian rulers. Because we need to understand that nobody is more afraid to lose their power than people who have been in power for so long, because once they lose their power, they lose their relevancy, they lose their stature, and they just become commoners like the people they rule upon. You can look at the map on the screen, maybe here or here, then you can see that this is India's map after partition, and you can clearly see the demarcations in various sections. There were the princely states, there were other areas that were directly under the British rule, and on top of all that, there were so many cultures in India, so many races, so many religions, so many languages. So all of this became a huge and daunting task for the Indian government, and this was mainly undertaken by India's first Deputy Prime Minister and India's first Home Minister, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, who was also known as the Iron Man of India, and he was supported by one another important individual whose name was VP Menon. Now, VP Menon was a civil servant and he was the secretary to the Ministry of States, which was ultimately headed by Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. And Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel recognized his work ethic and his political genius. So the both of them played a huge part, an important part in the integration of these princely states with the dominion of India. Now, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel convinced all these princely states by following a policy of carrot and stick. So first of all, he invoked the feelings of patriotism within these Indian rulers, and he also introduced the concept of privy purses. A privy purse was basically payments made to all these royals for the expenditure and maintenance, which was later abolished in 1971. The stick part was that he informed them about the repercussions that might follow if they refused to join the state of India. Almost all the princely states merged with India without any conflict, and one major reason for that was that most of them were small in size. So why is the state of JNK so important for both India and Pakistan? If you can look at the map on the screen, you can clearly see that the state of Jammu and Kashmir is the one that divides India and Pakistan. So it's right in the middle. So, naturally it becomes important from a security standpoint. Now, the state of JNK was ruled by a Hindu king called Maharaja Hari Singh, but the state had a predominant Muslim population. And Maharaja Hari Singh was reluctant to join either India or Pakistan, and he wanted to remain independent or autonomous. And one major reason for that was because if he joined Pakistan, then the state's Hindus and Sikhs would become vulnerable. And if he joined India, then the state's predominant Muslim population would not be so happy. For this, the Maharaja suggested a standstill agreement with both India and Pakistan. Now, a standstill agreement helps in ensuring a smooth transfer of power, and it basically meant that until new arrangements were made, all the existing administrative arrangements that existed between the state of J&K and the British Crown, they would continue to exist unaltered between both India and Pakistan. In other words, all the same arrangements that the state of J&K enjoyed from the Britishers' protection and an independent status, that would continue with India and Pakistan as well. Now, Pakistan agreed to this standstill agreement, whereas when it comes to India, there are conflicting reports. Some reports suggest that India welcomed this thought of a standstill agreement and even invited a ministerial delegate from the state of J&K to be sent to Delhi for further discussions, which was eventually rejected by the J&K administration. Whereas Sheikh Abdullah, the first ever elected Prime Minister of J&K, that's correct, Prime Minister, not Chief Minister, he gave an explanation that the Indian government did not consider any agreement valid until that agreement had the approval of people's representatives. The pressure had also been mounting on the Maharaja in the form of a Quit Kashmir movement, which was launched by the National Conference, which is a political outfit headed by Sheikh Abdullah, for which he, along with other leaders, was imprisoned by the Maharaja. During that same time, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, Pakistan's first Governor General, he sent his private secretary, Khurshid Hassan Khurshid, to Kashmir in order to assure the Maharaja to accede to Pakistan and that he does not have to think about the National Conference or he does not have to consider Sheikh Abdullah, and that Pakistan would not harm the Maharaja in any way or even take away an iota of his power. So when even after 12 days of signing the standstill agreement with Pakistan, the Maharaja did not accede to Pakistan, then Dawn, DAWN, which is a popular newspaper in Pakistan which continues to exist even to this day and was considered a mouthpiece for the Muslim League, which was a political outfit, they published an article on 24th August 1947 in the newspaper that the time has come for the Maharaja to make a decision and choose Pakistan, and should he fail to join Pakistan, then the gravest possible trouble would inevitably ensue for the Maharaja and for the state of J&K. At this, the Maharaja felt threatened and there were exchanges between Pakistan and the Maharaja. At the same time, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru and Mahatma Gandhi was also pushing the Maharaja to accede to India, but some people say that the Indian government's approach at this point of time was somewhat lukewarm to this whole situation because the government was already facing a crisis and complications from the Nizam of Hyderabad. Another important development that was unfolding was that around 60,000 ex-army men from the Poonch region in Jammu and Kashmir, they had started a no-tax campaign in June 1947 against the Maharaja, which later turned into a secessionist movement. And some people say that this movement only gained momentum because of the ill treatment and the unfair treatment that the Muslim population of Poonch was facing from the Maharaja. On 4th September 1947, General Henry Lawrence Scott, who was the commander of the Jammu and Kashmir state forces, he complained to the Maharaja about covert attacks from Pakistan and asked the Maharaja to raise this issue with Pakistan. Same day, Jammu and Kashmir's Prime Minister at that time, Janak Singh, he officially raised a complaint to Pakistan and asked for prompt actions. Pakistan, on the other hand, levelled similar charges against the J&K administration about incursions inside Sialkot by Jammu Hindus. All these developments had tired the Maharaja and put him under more pressure, and he finally ended up releasing Sheikh Abdullah from prison, who in his first ever public meeting reiterated that the demand of the Kashmiris is freedom. At the same time, he also took a jibe at Jinnah and said that how can Mr. Jinnah or the Muslim League tell us to accede to Pakistan, because they have always opposed us in every struggle. In early October 1947, the Maharaja complained to Pakistan's foreign ministry about the infiltration by tribals hundreds of kilometers inside the border in the Jammu region. Pakistan denied the allegations and rather called the Maharaja's attention to the terror and the atrocities which was being perpetrated by the J&K forces against the Muslim population of the Poonch region, atrocities which Pakistan suggested were provoking spontaneous reactions both from within J&K and from ethnic and religious kin across the border. 22nd October 1947, Pakistan finally officially launched Operation Gulmarg by mobilizing tribals from the northwest frontier province. Tribesmen fully armed with modern weapons and under the direct control of Pakistani generals, they started invading J&K with minimal resistance from the Maharaja's forces. 2 days later, on 24th October 1947, the Maharaja appealed to India for military assistance and to stop the aggression. According to the book titled Jammu and Kashmir by Jyoti Das Gupta, it was Mountbatten who suggested to India that unless the Maharaja signs an instrument of accession, which was a legal document that allowed the state of J&K to accede to India, only then should Indian government interfere in the whole situation. Although Mountbatten did mention that this accession would purely be provisional and after law and order situation would return to normalcy in the state, there would be a plebiscite in order to decide the state's future. Plebiscite basically is a voting process by the people of a region in order to decide the state's future. And just for your information, that plebiscite never happened even to this day. A defense committee was set up and VP Menon was sent to Kashmir to observe and report. He came back the next day and he suggested strongly to the government that troops should be sent immediately to Kashmir in order to save Kashmir from the raiders. Finally, on 26th October 1947, the Maharaja signed the Instrument of Accession, which guaranteed India limited access inside Jammu and Kashmir on matters of defense, communications, and foreign affairs. To read the Instrument of Accession in detail, you can visit the link given in the description down below. Since now the state of J&K was officially a part of India, the Indian government flew troops to Kashmir, and with the help of the local population and volunteers, the first Kashmir war began, which lasted for around 14 bitter months. I will not go into detail about the whole war because that is a story in itself, but you can check the description for the link about the whole war. India took this matter to the United Nations, and on 13th August 1948, the United Nations Commission for India and Pakistan passed a resolution providing for a ceasefire, the withdrawal of Pakistani troops and tribal militia, followed by an Indian withdrawal and a plebiscite. The ceasefire was finally achieved on 1st January 1949, and on 27th July 1949, the Karachi Agreement was signed between India and Pakistan, which established a ceasefire line in Kashmir, which after some changes after the Indo-Pak War of 1965 was mutually renamed to the Line of Control, or LOC as we know now. So this was how the state of J&K was integrated into India, and we see how J&K has been in contention between both India and Pakistan for so many years, and the friction at the border and inside the state, it still continues to this very day. So while I was researching on this topic, I saw that there was limited information on the horrors of this war and by the atrocities carried out by all parties involved. Some reports suggest that it was all covered up. Most people say that it never happened, which is why most reports are based on experiences of the victims that survived. So this leads to some unverified information as well and underreporting for sure, but I have tried my best to attach all my links with, back all my facts with credible sources, and you can, see all those links in the description down below. Be it the Jammu massacres, which some reports claim took the lives of around 20,000 to 100,000 Muslims, or the Mirpur massacres, which took the lives of around 30,000 plus Hindus and Sikhs, or the Rajouri massacres, which took the lives of around 20,000 non-Muslims. So what we need to understand is that the goals of these massacres or any massacres around the world are always, the same. They are genocide, ethnic cleansing, forced conversions, and the methods by which they are operated or achieved are always the same. Mass rapes, arson, rioting, looting, and abduction and enslavement, usually of women. And when you think about all these massacres or all these issues, then it just comes down to people not thinking for themselves, people being easily influenced by politicians, religious gurus, and it just converts, this whole thing converts into mob mentality, and a mob mentality just goes on a rampage and it never stops. And you know, it's just all parties are equally to be blamed, and you know, there's no winner or there's no loser. Eventually everybody lost. Everybody lost someone, so there was no winner that emerged out of this. When talking about Jammu and Kashmir, India and Pakistan were involved again in the 1965 India-Pakistan War, 1999 Kargil War, and time to time border standoffs and cross-border firing happens, and we lose soldiers and the other side loses soldiers, so that still continues. As far as the state of J&K is concerned, some say things have got better, some say things have got worse, but I believe that only somebody who has lived enough and experienced enough inside the state of J&K, only they can rightfully share an opinion. But on a side note, the state of J&K is a very beautiful place, so if you can, please do visit. So this is the end of this episode, and I hope you liked this video. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you're still watching, and I hope that I was able to bring some value to you in the form of this video. And if you're still watching and if you like the video, then do support and hit the subscribe button, comment on the video, like the video, share the video, and I will see you very soon with yet another episode and yet another interesting story. Bye for now.